It's no secret that, at the time of recording at least, Sony's focus when it comes to their exclusives is on third-person action-adventure games. Sure, there's plenty of differences between Spider-Man, Days Gone and Sackboy, but third-person action-adventure is a common through line that connects them all. For games like Resistance or Killzone though, they've fallen by the wayside. A series that gave the answer to, what if you fought Nazis in space, Killzone felt like a core part of Sony's portfolio for a good decade, but with the added focus on third person from the end of the PS3 generation up until now, there's been no room for it. On top of that, the developers Guerrilla Games have been busy working on the Horizon series. Today, we're asking the question, will we ever see a new Killzone game? I'm Daryl for Cultured Vultures, and this is the past and future of Killzone. Slap like now, your destiny beckons. Stand with your brothers and sisters, stand with me, and together we will beat the algorithm. Killzone's history begins with Lost Boy Games, who rebranded to Guerrilla Games back in 2003 after developing a series of work-for-hire Game Boy Color Game Boy Advance games. Before Killzone's launch in late 2004, the studio had no real experience developing shooter games for modern console platforms, so naturally they jumped in and created two at once. Killzone and Shell Shock NAM 67. While Shell Shock is more of a forgotten game, though it did spawn a sequel developed by Rebellion, Killzone was the game. Killzone was given Sony's marketing budget and was dubbed as a Halo killer in reference to Bungie's seminal sci-fi shooter series. Already, without delving too deep into the history, the branding is clearly untrue. At the time of recording, Halo Infinite is a few months from launch, while Killzone is nowhere to be seen. Set in the far-flung future, the Killzone series sees humanity retreating to the stars after they decimated Earth. Humanity then colonized two planets, Helgen and Vector. Essentially, those who lived on Helgen deemed themselves to be superior while mutating into stronger creatures as a result. Referred to as the Helghast, this oppressive force is now working to conquer Vector once and for all. Critically, the first Killzone failed to put the series on the map, earning an average Metacritic score of 70. Critics felt the gunplay was decent enough and the graphics were a huge showcase for the PS2, even if the game felt like the start of the era of brown and grey military shooters. While exact sales figures for the first game in the series are hard to come by, Killzone performed well enough to join the Platinum Essentials PS2 library, suggesting that the game achieved at least 400k sales in the first year alone. In fairness though, the success of Killzone was somewhat of a moot point, as Sony had already purchased Guerrilla Games earlier on in the year. Like many Sony franchises of the mid-2000s, Killzone then made the move to the PSP with Killzone Liberation, a half-sequel, half-spin-off that continued the story but from a top-down perspective. Liberation would launch in 2006 and would go on to receive better reviews than the first game, averaging at a 77 on Metacritic. Interestingly, House Marquee were even involved in the game's development, who have now got on to big things with the release of Returnal. The next game in the series, Killzone 2, proved to be the series' finest hour, but it almost came undone before the game was released due to some controversy. The game was revealed at E3 2005, some 4 years before the full game was actually released, with the trailer showcasing some pretty impressive visuals. The issue was that the trailer was billed as gameplay and what players could expect to see from both Killzone 2 and the PS3 as a whole. This, of course, was bullshit, but that didn't stop Jack Tretton, then VP of Sony Computer Entertainment America, from saying the following to G4 TV host Jeff Keighley. It's definitely real. I guess we're pretty good at keeping secrets because the dev kits were out there, the dev kits are very intuitive, so people did some incredible things. And that's one thing Insomniac Games founder Ted Price wanted to make sure everybody understood, that this is real gameplay everybody's seeing out there. Turns out Jack was actually talking about Resistance instead of Killzone. A few days later, Phil Harrison of SCE Europe conducted an interview with GamesIndustry.biz to reveal that the footage shown was actually prospective, using the PS3 specs as a basis. I've been asked this question a lot. The way we put those videos together, everything was done to specification, everything was done to PS3 spec. Virtually everything used in-game assets, some things were rendered. Despite the announcement issues, Killzone 2 would still go on to be the highlight for the series, earning an incredible 91 on Metacritic and is listed as a must-play title. Without a doubt, Killzone 2 is up there as one of the best games ever made for the PS3, and the sales reflect that too. Within less than 2 months of launch, the game sold over 1 million copies, exceeding expectations for Sony. Naturally, a third proper game in the series was to be expected, with Killzone 3 launching in 2011 on PS3. Intriguingly, Guerrilla opted to focus less on the grim and dark aspects of the Killzone universe. Aping the likes of Uncharted, Killzone 3 was designed to be a bit more of a fun adventure romp than a truly oppressive game. While not quite as universally beloved as the previous game, Killzone 3 still managed to accrue a respectable 84 on Metacritic, with critics enjoying the bombastic adventure that Killzone 3 offered. It didn't reinvent the wheel after Killzone 2, though depending on who you asked, that's either fine or not good enough. Sales-wise, launch sales were down compared to Killzone 2, though it did manage to beat Bulletstorm in the UK charts. That's a shame that. Bulletstorm slaps. Bulletstorm Path when? 2013 could be considered as Killzone's last stand, as 2 games were released in the series before it was quietly shuffled off this mortal coil. The first game, Killzone Mercenary, is exactly what it sounds like. You play as a mercenary, taking on missions and threats in the midst of the events of Killzone 2 and 3. An FPS game for the PS Vita, Mercenary has the distinction of being the only Killzone game not developed by the main Guerrilla Games team, as development duties were instead handled by Guerrilla Cambridge. Formerly known as SCE Cambridge, the team were responsible for the likes of Little Big Planet's PSP port, the Medieval series, and 24 the game. I'll let you decide which of those is the best. Launching in September 2013, Killzone Mercenary averaged at a 78 on Metacritic, which doesn't sound like a massive achievement, but for an FPS on the Vita, Mercenary felt like a huge success. Previous examples, the most notable being Resistance Burning Skies, left a lot to be desired, so to see an FPS game fully embrace the handheld change and thrive is notable. Sales-wise, Mercenary is the 7th best-selling PS Vita game of all time, but the Vita is a known sales disaster, meaning that Mercenary didn't really break into the gaming consciousness in the way previous games might have. It's been said that the overall sales of the top 10 PS Vita games amount to the first month of sales for the Spider-Man on PS4, which is a damning indictment of the handheld console. While Guerrilla Cambridge were busy with the PS Vita, Guerrilla Games themselves were working on a launch title for the PS4, Killzone Shadowfall. A new direction for the series, Shadowfall was set 30 years after the last game, with both Vectans and Helghast forced to coexist on the same planet after the events of the previous games. Naturally, it's a bit of a mess, and as new character Lucas Kellen, you're stuck trying to prevent another war. Shadowfall's new direction meant more options for the player when it came to dealing with the single-player levels. Areas were more open-ended and encouraged stealth instead of just blasting everything in sight and hoping for the best. Before the game launched, lead designer Eric Boltz spoke to PlayStation Lifestyle about that decision. What is the next thing that we want to do? As I said during my presentation, it is all about adding more depth, adding more choices, more options to the player. It is always tricky to understand what people will expect from next gen. I definitely think it is more depth in gameplay options. Unfortunately, the Metacritic score averaged at 73, making Shadowfall one of the weaker Killzone entries in the series. While no one claims that Shadowfall is an awful game, not by any stretch of the imagination, it certainly felt like it lacked innovation, especially when you considered it was part of the PS4's launch lineup and a benchmark for what could have been achieved on the new hardware. As far as critics were concerned, all that could be achieved is everything you enjoyed about gaming before, only shinier. However, the sales for Shadowfall told a different story, with the game reaching 2.1 million units sold by January 15th, 2 months to the day after the game launched in North America, making it the best-selling game in the series. Despite the impressive numbers though, the series appears to have fizzled out completely. Given the actions of both Sony and Guerrilla Games in early 2021, it'd be fair to assume that Killzone doesn't actually have a future. At the start of the year, the website Killzone.com was retired, with the site now offering a short statement along with a redirect link to the PlayStation website. The short statement reads, "The official website for the Killzone franchise has retired. Going forward, visitors to Killzone.com will be directed to PlayStation.com. While this change doesn't affect the online multiplayer modes, player statistics, or ranking data for Killzone Mercenary and Killzone Shadowfall, it is now no longer possible to create or manage clans in Killzone Shadowfall. We apologise for this inconvenience. Thank you to Killzone.com's many fans and visitors throughout the years for their enthusiasm and support." It's a strange move to pull, but one that could be indicative of Guerrilla's new priorities and direction. Right now, the development team have developed Horizon Zero Dawn, the post-apocalyptic open-world robot-slaying adventure, and are hard at work putting the finishing touches on Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon has been a huge success for Sony, both on PC and PlayStation, so it makes sense that we'd see the developers focus on what's working. Guerrilla's then managing director and co-founder Herman Hulst would also talk about the potential of a new Killzone game back in 2017 in an interview with the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences, refusing to commit to a new game while also refusing to put a definitive end to the series as well. It's really heartwarming to hear that there's such a strong appetite from the loyal Killzone fanbase. It's a franchise and universe that we still love with a passionate Guerrilla. It hasn't been easy doing something so completely different. Whether or not we've put a permanent period behind the series, it's too early to make announcements on that. All I can say is that we've always loved the Killzone universe and the Killzone series, and we still do. We share that passion for the game with a lot of our fans. It's a similar kind of lip service that most developers utilise when talking about fan requests for a long dormant franchise, but the key difference for this story compared to others is that Herman Hulst is now in a position to do something about it. Hulst is the current head of Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios, meaning he'd be the one of the big decision makers when it comes to bringing Killzone back. The decision's not entirely on his shoulders, of course, but he would play a key role. As for whether or not we will see a new Killzone game, the cop-out answer is that it'd probably be best to fully remake the original trilogy, bringing them up to speed with modern-day gunplay, graphics and more. It's a lot of resources to devote to a series of games, only one of which seem to achieve a large level of popularity, but it would be even more costly to develop a brand new game. At least some kind of remake would be a water testing moment for the series before Sony commits to another full game. It was mentioned in our Resistance video, and watch that video by the way, it's actually quite good, that Sony really needs a big FPS exclusive right now, if nothing else so it can diversify its own portfolio of games. Something like Killzone would be a great way to do that, appealing to a hardcore subsection of players already invested in the world of Killzone while potentially attracting new fans too. It'd be great to see Killzone return, but we're not holding out a lot of hope for it. And there you have it, that is our video on the past and future of Killzone. So we pass the question off to you as ever. Did you play the Killzone series back in the day? Would you be up for seeing the Killzone series make a return in whatever form that may be? Sign off in the comments down below, let us know what you're thinking. Please remember to hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, as well as checking out the social medias on screen now and of course the website culturedvultures.com. With all that in mind, hopefully we'll catch you in the next one, but until then, caw.